Right now, the emergency manager-in-chief, President Obama, returning to our region, checking out the damage left behind by Sandy and the recovery efforts so he sees it for himself. How are the victims receiving the president? We were there today, and did his visit mean we're going to get the money and the housing needed to rebuild and recover? Then, stuck in the middle, UN Ambassador Susan Rice caught in a power play between top Republicans and an angry president. Is the GOP right here to play hardball given her comments on Benghazi? What exactly did she say to get everybody so fired up? And are Republicans overplaying the Benghazi aftermath, or are they just trying to get vital questions answered? And later, Romney's parting gifts. While Republicans assessed the losses last Tuesday, the GOP nominee offers some parting thoughts of his own. But did he maybe go too far? All right, everybody, we have got a lot ahead of you for the next 60 minutes. First of all, good evening and welcome to you, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks for joining us this November 15th. Now, we're going to cover all that plus the latest on the soap opera that is the David Petraeus scandal, the impact on money in the election process, and even, time permitting, a certain knuckleball and knuckleballer who received the Cy Young Award. But let's begin with our continuing coverage of the aftermath of the superstorm and the president's visit today. And for that, I want to bring in Andrew Whitman, our senior correspondent.
Well, Rich, for the second time since Sandy made landfall, President Obama was here in our region surveying the damage. This time he flew over the worst sections of Queens before landing in Staten Island to see what people there have been seeing now for more than 2 weeks.
Well, we're thinking of you.
Thank you.
All right, God bless you.
An up-close and personal look at the devastation for the President of the United States. The damage on hard-hit Staten Island is everywhere, but what you can't see is the internal struggles so many New Yorkers are facing.
I had the opportunity to give some hugs and communicate thoughts and prayers to the Moore family. They lost 2 young sons during the course of this tragedy. Hey guys!
President Obama says the federal government will be a part of the rebuilding process. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is requesting $30 billion in aid.
There's still a lot of cleanup to do. People still need emergency help. They still need heat. They still need power. They still need food. They still need shelter.
Progress is being made on Staten Island, but at a snail's pace.
Please help us, because we don't know anything right now.
The National Guard is assisting with cleanup, but these longtime residents want to know when the help will come.
We need shelter. We need heat. We need funding.
We need FEMA to come in. You know, nobody really knows where they stand, what's going to happen, what's going to go on. Everybody's worried right now.
The president visiting today with no guarantee about how his words or efforts would be received. This, after all, a community whose leaders seem to imply Staten Island had more in common with Haiti than, let's say, New Orleans.
They said, we don't know where we're going. This is our family belongings. This is what we're left with. And there's nobody there to respond to them. That can go on. It cannot go on. This is America. This is not a third world nation. We need food. We need clothing. We need everything you could possibly think of.
That quote in the days after the storm. So what are Staten Islanders and other victims of the storm saying today with the president's words still fresh in their minds? For that, we turn to FiOS 1's Samantha Liebman. She joins us live tonight from Staten Island. Samantha?
Well, Andrew, the president's words are still fresh in the minds of the people who met him here in New Dorp Beach. They were very thankful for the president's visit. It uplifted their spirits, and they really, truly believe that he is going to keep his word to them. Take a listen to what they had to say.
I think it was great that he came down. He saw what was going on here, and you know, the community is in trouble, and he knows that, and I think he's going to be very supportive of us. I think he's going to help us out.
He just basically was saying, you know, that he's going to help, you know, and he hugged me twice, so it made me feel good.
I am proud of my president.
So you're happy he came? Even
yes, yes, I am. It's acknowledging all of us.
It means everything due to the fact that to know he took the time out of his schedule to come and see the devastation on our island.
The residents we spoke with really felt that the president understood this community and understood that people did not want to move, that they want to rebuild, and that's why he's made this promise and this effort to head up a strong rebuilding effort here in the area. He also handed out a lot of hugs and a lot of gifts. One woman showed us that he gave her ornaments from the White House, so he really connected with people on a personal level. He also met with the Moore family. Now, if you remember, they lost their 2 young sons in floodwaters while they were trying to take them to higher ground. And he said that their sense of togetherness and their strength, as well as the strength and togetherness of all the people on Staten Island, volunteers and first responders, sanitation workers, everyone here working on the recovery, he thinks that that strength is going to help New York bounce back. So very good reception for the president here on Staten Island. Now, that's the latest here on Staten Island. Back to you, Rich.
All right, Sam, thank you very much. I want to bring in our panel on this. Richard Brodsky, former Democratic New York State Assembly, a professor now at NYU, blogger and a fellow at Demos. We'll drag him into the world of journalism now. And speaking of journalism, our journalist and author Dominic Carter, a man once called the last Republican from New England, Chris Shays, former congressman from the great state of Connecticut, who's kind enough to join us, and also Andrew Whitman, who you just heard from. All right, I want to go around the table, and Congressman, we'll start with you. I'm going to get to the New York politics of what the governor asked for, but it was a big price tag, $30 billion. You, among other committees, sat on were housing, national security, et cetera. It seems that a lot of red tape was cut through this time, but if you're on the ground in Staten Island, you're in parts of Long Island, New Jersey, even parts of Connecticut, they say, we hear the words, but we haven't seen the action. When is the cavalry coming? How fast should expectations be of federal response of a disaster that literally went up and down the eastern seaboard?
Well, folks in New Jersey and New York are tough folks, and they come together. But this was just an horrific storm, and just like what happened in Louisiana, it's tough. The difference here is, though, you have governors and mayors that are working together. Down in Louisiana, you didn't. And there are some folks who simply still don't know what's going on. That is inexcusable. But knowing what's going on and getting it done, it's going to take a while. It has to. But great to have a president come. It's important when a governor comes to. I can tell you that you speak to any governor, the towns that they missed, they never get reelected in. The towns that they go to, even if they're of the other party, they're always going to do well. It's just something they should do. And last point, my biggest regret, one of my biggest regrets, was that President Bush didn't go down to New Orleans in the first week and stay there, go into the Dome and say, I'm not leaving here until all my fellow Americans are out safe. When he came up here after September 11th, the day after, the second, it made a world of difference.
It sure did. Everybody remembers the bullhorn on the rubble. In terms of the funding that will come, speaking of September 11th, a lot of people forget the fight that it was to get the $20 billion to New York. It took a full decade for Zadroga funding to come through. Do you anticipate that it's going to be tough to get the funding, because it's a big number here that local leaders are looking for?
$30 billion, but if that's what it is, they'll eventually get it. But the governor's not going to lowball it.
Yep. Speaking of the governor, were you surprised, Richard, that he threw a number out the week that the president was coming? Because a lot of people were surprised not just by the number, but the form and the substance of it.
Well, I don't know exactly threw it out there. He leaked it to the New York Times, which has its own virtues. I've been guilty of that myself on occasion. The $30 billion includes things like rebuilding the electric grid of the state and some things that are not storm damage repair. I think the Congressman is correct. He was going to highball and hope for better, but whether that was an effective political strategy, whether that endeared him to the president or the congressional delegation, is a question that we'll only find out over time.
Well, you're being polite. Already we have some folks who are questioning if it was bad form. I mean, you look across the river, Governor Christie said, I got huge problems here, but he didn't attach a number to it. He says he's looking for help from Washington.
Are you suggesting that Chris Christie is the behavioral model that we should all be?
I tell you, he not only, whatever you think, he has been I
He
think a
has.
terrific leader through this whole
He
crisis.
has. And the tactics of how you negotiate a number for your state are subject to differing views. It was a little strange.
Dominic, we already know that New York, they were projecting $1 billion shortfall for the budget. It's going to be $2 billion right now. New Jersey, in many ways, is starting from scratch here. They're just getting their hands around these numbers. I mean, they got telephone numbers they have to deal with in terms of trying to make the math add up. And until they know what they're getting from Washington, it's a bad situation gets to worse.
Well, it's my hunch the Governor Cuomo, he's not going to get $30 billion. I don't know whether it was offensive to the president to do it in the days ahead of him coming here, but for him to include some of the things that Richard just mentioned that have nothing to do with disaster relief or damage, it's just not going to happen when you consider the budget shortfalls that Washington is dealing with.
I wonder if maybe the reason he spit out that number isn't some of the problems that New York State's had in the past after 9/11, seeing some of the delays in not everybody or in the rest of the country embracing the desire to help the New York area.
It may be tactical, but it also was done in the week that the president is beginning fiscal cliff negotiations, getting a tap on the shoulder saying, and when you're finished with that, make sure there's an extra $18 billion over the 12 FEMA already has.
So but maybe that's why he did it. You know, when you think about it.
And it may turn out to be very effective.
On the table.
You don't have to be loved to be effective, right?
You know, I served in Congress when Andrew was down in Washington, and he's a tough character. So, I mean, and he's got a lot of experience. So he didn't do this casually.
I only want one thing. If they decide to send up a disaster pool, they have states fighting and saying, wait a minute, in New Jersey here, look at us right along the shore. I know Long Island had it bad, but look where we are. That's one thing I'd love to see avoided here, where people have to fight over pieces of the pie. That's just one thing when I started seeing the math and I'm starting to see the posturing. If it's basically set out, this is the total pool that's going to be divvied up between the different states, it could get a little bit awkward. All right, coming up next, as the general turns, the latest on the David Petraeus scandal. We're going to have that, plus some developments on that as well. Stay with us.